Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. So we stopped in chapter 5, as I remember. And it was number 10, 510. No, 11, 12. Yes. Kayana manasa buddhiya kevalairindrayairapi yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atmashuddhaye yuktah karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnuti naishtikim ayuktah kamakarena phalesakto nibadhyate. Yuktah, the one who is united, composed, karma phalam tyaktva, having left the fruit of action, shanti mapnuti naishtikim, reaches to the highest, to the supreme peace. Ayuktah, the one who is not composed, kama karena, with the action of karma, phalesaktah, becomes attached to phalam, to the fruit of action, nibadhyate, and is bound. Somewhere here, secretly, we see the explanation of where karma is being produced and why. Why desire at all appears. Why it is being generated. Because when one is not composed, when one is not united, then there is only one way to generate any motivation for action in life, and that is desire. It's quite obvious, so to say. So the moment we are united, the moment we are totally composed, and there is no more difference between our mind, heart, and will, we become united, yuktah, and then we can leave karma phalam, the motivation by a result, which is produced by karma. So karma is no more needed once we are united. We have all the opportunities to be anything, everything, to find the divine in every possible movement, feeling, thought. But when we are not composed, that means we are deficient in one part or another. And that deficiency creates a lack of some kind, which must be fulfilled or filled by some other motivation or force of nature, which is the desire. It's quite interesting to think of it philosophically, why and how the desire is being generated. The problem is not even in desire, as Sri Krishna would say. He says that the problem is in the desiring the desires. When we want the desires to be, we are seeking the desires within our selves. We are not, fulfilled without having the desires. And we know this state. I know it by myself also. When the desire is gone, you feel like being lost, as if, a bit. Because the nature is used to follow the desire. Good or bad doesn't matter. Matters that it is some kind of a routine of nature, which is justified by nature, and then you have to find another justification by the divine presence, which is quite a different thing, different type of motivation. And if that aspiration is not there for that truth, higher truth, then one feels at lost. So that one feels lost, at loss, as if something is lacking. And that's what happens when people ask mother to help them to get rid of their desires or their problems, and she does it, and then they call them back because they feel that they are not themselves, as it were. And without their desires, life feels like it is unnecessary, as it were. Or what is there to live for if there is no desire? If there is no palm, the fruit, or the aim, as it were, the aim we call the fruit, yeah? To achieve, to realize, if there is no that aim, why should I live? And what's the point of living if there is no the desire? We are so motivated by the desire that because we are yuktas, we are not yet composed totally. We are not yet efficient in our mind, heart, and will. And that's the issue, I think. I'm provoking some black and white kind of thinking, which provokes other thoughts. If you have some thoughts, you can always cut in and add to it or change it or argue. As Don was saying, I'm waiting for your arguments. Please argue with me. It would be nice to hear some arguments.
Vladimir, does this desire also come from karma from previous lives? Is that the same thing?
Could be from previous life, could be from not our life altogether, but kind of universal desires which are contagious, as Mother says in Sri Aurobindo. They are pervading the whole space, and if we live in this space and watch TVs and go for shopping and so on, we are pervaded by these forces, and they are suggesting to us a way of living which we accept because we are not composed, because we are not yet fulfilled in ourselves. Our will is not in accordance with our heart, and our heart is not in accordance with our mind, and our word is not in accordance with our mind, heart, and will. And there we have it. We have discrepancy. We have the cracks into which these forces can enter and suggest the fulfillment of another kind through their own means, by their own energies.
This makes me think about how Sri Aurobindo says that human beings are very restless because we're always seeking after our own perfection. And in the Life Divine, it's so wonderful how he says that we're seeking to know what the purpose of life is, what we should do, and how we should do it. And that actually prompted me to write a book on his theory of motivation. In effect, replacing the seeking after the soul's need. We have to ultimately we will replace, everybody will replace the motivation of desire with with deep inner need that we all have.
Yeah. And this motivation can be also coming from dogmas, from cultural bringing, from all kind of, propaganda, brainwashing, especially religious zeal, which is very contagious. And we can see it in the world, how people start believing, how they are, how to say, exciting themselves. They are joining the party. It's very vitalistic in a way, and it gives some fulfillment for the being because it is not composed. And it wants to be fulfilled. It wants to be one. It wants to be one with its surrounding. How these religions actually took such a huge number of people into their lap. If we think they propose, they give us the solution to have some kind of resemblance of fulfillment in the society, that you are recognized in the same way, you have the same system of beliefs. You can, that is what culture is doing. Culture is building cult, the repetition of the same movement within the vital, within the mental, and by that it builds up that convention, or fulfills us to a certain extent, that we are not totally lost. And then,
I think too, oh, sorry, were you?
no, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think too that behind most desires is something real, is a true aspiration, is a true yearning that's coming from deep within. But what happens, right, is it comes up, is it, my favorite word, hijack. It gets hijacked by the vital, by the emotional, by the mental, in the ways that you just said, through conventions, through beliefs, through preferences, likes and dislikes, and it mutates into something that's very narrow, very short lasting in term, always changing. But I do believe deep down there's something that's trying to get expressed. And if we can get to that, which is really kind of these soul yearnings, then we would be able to bring it up cleaner, and it wouldn't be this momentary happiness or this very something that has to get transformed or experienced in a form. So it's worth looking deeper at desires and looking deep within to see what the real underlying fulfillment is coming from the soul, is wanting to be fulfilled.
That's so true. In psychological terms, you could say it's developmental. That once one level of desire or need is fulfilled, then the individual can progress to a deeper understanding or a higher understanding. And Sri Aurobindo sees it, of course, in evolutionary terms, which is more philosophical and more real at base, I believe, than a psychological perspective of it.
Right. I agree totally with you and Radha especially. And we discussed this, that behind every need is the higher need of fulfillment, of harmony, and that need is being translated by other forces. They are trying to fill into those cracks, and they fill their own substance. And then you see that actually it wasn't really the solution. It was a temporarily solution, some kind of bewilderment rather, that was a shadow of that real true solution of harmony and fulfillment and bliss. It was just for a moment, like and there is something about desires even deeper. They are Mother somewhere speaks about this, that they are having this particular nature, that people indulge in them, they go to the absoluteness of their realization, and that absoluteness of desire, which is never fulfilled, because desire cannot be really fulfilled, because it's a wrong movement, in a way, which is not leading us to the real realization. It's just a substitution of that lack. And in this absoluteness of each desire to be absolutely realized, there is the sign of the divinity. There is, each of these movements is actually, in a way, a divine movement, only misplaced in time and space, only misused, as it were, and in that sense it creates a havoc, or the obstruction to the fulfillment, claiming the fulfillment. So to make order in all that, there is only one way, is to discover the real motivation from within, which does not depend on whatever happens outside, on the fruit of action, on the result. It depends only on the presence of the true being within us, which has to be felt, perceived, and brought forward. And that will make order with all those desires, eventually, I guess. But for Krishna, desire is the enemy, actually. He defines it as the enemy which is to be killed, actually, destroyed, because it is generated by Rajas guna of nature. Rajas guna of nature is that need to break through tamasic dying and tamasic inertia. In nature, there is this force which is needed for the function of nature. But we try to use that force to fulfill ourselves, which cannot be used for that fulfillment. It's quite a topic in a way in itself, to discuss what is the desire. Charles wants to say something. Yes, Charles.
So desire is not limited.
Can't hear you very well. Somehow either closer to the microphone or something you have to adjust.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
So desire, that's something from kind of the human perspectives, but animals desire, right? Insects desire, everything desires, doesn't it?
Yes. Desire in itself should not be a problem, again. It is the desiring the desire is the problem. The desire of second generation, as it were, that which is created by the mind, a certain misplacement of the order of things. Because desires in the animal kingdom, they play their role of nature, yes? They are hungry, they search for food, and they eat. They want to procreate, they procreate. The time has come. Yes, they do not do it by whims or by mental decision that now I will eat though I am not hungry, or now I will procreate though I don't need to procreate. They do do this shift. They are not seeking for additional kind of enjoyment out of desire being realized. Our mental beings already understood that they can manipulate these things. By the way, animals who live close to man also start to behave in that way. They learn from man to misplace their desires. The desires of nature are being misplaced, and they generate something else, the obstacle on the path.
One of my great epiphanies in my life was the greatest desire I had was to be desireless.
Desireless, yes.
Desire to be desireless, right?
It's a great desire. Cannot be easily fulfilled. By the way, Sri Aurobindo likes this word, and he uses it in Savitri also, as you remember. He speaks about the divine desire. He knows that it is a power of some kind, yes? But if it is the divine desire, it's a very different, it's like an aspiration or some kind of a need for the divine fulfillment, which is, of course, hijacked, as Radha has said, by other forces because of what? And here is the answer, ayuktah. We are not composed. We are not one in our mind, in our heart, in our will. And because of that, being not fulfilled, being not totally composed, we are open to these suggestions of nature to fulfill us. And we are looking for that fulfillment. We accept it as a substitute on the way. And maybe nothing is wrong about it until we know that there is another motivator within us. And then we learn slowly to live on different ground, being motivated by different force, aspiration in the heart, which is totally different from desire. It doesn't. Yeah.
So if naturally rooted in us is this maybe desire is the right word, but this drive to really do our best and be our best and participate in a way that's fulfilling. Is that just ego conversation? Is that just?
Yeah. You see how beautifully he puts it in one line. Ayukta kama karena, by doing kama, ayukta, who is not fulfilled, composed, united. Palesaktach, he is being attached by the doing of kama to the fruit, to the result. We are seeking the perfection and we are not yet ready for it. We do not yet have consciousness or unity within ourselves to gain that perfection, so we force it to be by some other means. We want to get it anyhow. So we are kind of in a hurry to receive that result of perfection in some form or another and to realize ourselves. We by ignorance, we find that the desire may do the job for our perfection, as it were. And it does, in a way. That's how in ignorance we grow and change and evolve. Makes sense or not too much? Yeah, it's such a subtle matter. Some kind of very evasive, disappears so easily. This kind of to receive the result too soon, with a consciousness which is not ready, not yet composed, generates the desire which leads to the attachment to the fruit. Fruit is seen as the fulfillment of that perfection, which is not possible because there is no yet consciousness which deserves that realization. So we want a speedy realization, fast fruit. And that is how desire is being generated and invited by us to participate within this kind of endeavor of ours to become perfect, to become composed. And if we would see what forces we invite to really participate, we would, if we could see them, we would understand that they are not meant to do that. That's why people are never satisfied with achievement of their desires. The fruit of action which people achieve is not really satisfactory to the extent they were expecting it to be. It's always the case. It's an interesting thing.
That's well, it just drives another larger desire. So
right.
Now you're chasing one after the other, and you're kind of rahu'd, right, as we would say in astrology.
Yeah, very good word, rahu'd. Yes, exactly. You're rahu'd into that circle of chasing something, some perfection, by the means which do not lead to that perfection. You know, there is Hegel's definition that you can arrive at the realization of, or at the aim of your endeavor by the means of that aim. You cannot arrive at it by the means of other, aim. So here, the same story, by the means of of energies which do not arrive at this aim, you want to arrive at it. You cannot arrive at this aim. You will arrive at something else, some exhaustion, actually it leads us to death. Basically, every desire leads to exhaustion and death, dissolution of the body and all the means. It doesn't lead us to fulfillment. And still, it is needed to build progressively all the means of manifestation. There is a wisdom in everything. It's incredible. In Dhammapada, there is a statement which maybe I already quoted. Even the rain of golden coins cannot satisfy the desire. There is no way, because it's not meant to be satisfied. It is meant to be leading to another greater desire. and greater. And Mother says if the vital force would be given the right to rule this earth, it would destroy it long ago. It has this unsatiating, I want to put it, unsatisfied need of gobbling everything. Yeah? It cannot be satiated, that thirst, that power of vital, if there would be no control of the psychic. And there is the psychic spark which stops everyone at the most crucial moment of loss of everything. Even in the, as Mother says, in the criminals, she mentions criminals who in one moment of time cannot continue anymore, and they stop and they feel something in themselves which they cannot overcome, something stronger than their desire, some truth, some righteousness. That spark stops them from being totally criminals. It's quite interesting to think how we are made of, and in what world we operate. But the moment we are composed, we allow that spark to come to the front, or to become perceptible, to become visible to us. We would feel its presence and its guidance. And in that sense, we lose the motivation by desire. We want that spark to lead the whole nature. We want it to control our nature and ourselves more and more, because the delight of that spark is much greater than the following of the desire. Much greater, no comparison. I remember how Jocelyn, Jocelyn, our big Jocelyn, who suffered a lot from COVID, actually. By the way, I heard from someone from Oroville, and she, when she met the mother, you have to hear her interview. She says that, when I met the mother, it was better. It was better than champagne. It was better than wine and alcohol and drugs and sex. It was better than that. That's how she, understood the mother. The presence of the mother was such a great delight and peace and bliss that she could not compare with anything she had before in her life. And that's an interesting definition in a way. There was a spark in her. She felt the truth in her, which was finally revealed to her through the mother's presence. Those who felt this, they cannot go back, definitely. They can't go back to alcohol or whatever and find and look for some other fulfillment in their lives. Okay, and then sarva karmani manasa samyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. All the karmas, all the actions, manasa with the mind, samyasya, having controlled, having totally put under control with his mind all the actions. Aste sukham vashi, who sits having renounced all its actions, let me read, by the mind inwardly and not outwardly, sits serenely in its nine-gated city, Navadvare Pure Dehi, neither doing nor causing to be done. He is not doing nor causing anything to be done. So there is a sense of fulfillment. Once that inner being in the heart is discovered, it doesn't feel that it does something or causes anything to do. It only aspires for the divine, for more and more the divine to reveal itself. That's the only thing it does. But it doesn't cause nature to do something. It doesn't have a plan. It doesn't have an objectives and 1, 2, 3 to do the plan, to do things one after the other. It doesn't do these things. Within itself, it doesn't feel that way. It feels that it is already fulfilled. That's how Sri Krishna would speak about himself. I feel I have nothing here to realize, to fulfill, to gain from, and still I'm in this action. But the problem is here perfectly controlling its nature, the embodied soul. How embodied soul can perfectly control its nature? That is the great achievement. First of all, it has to be found, then it has to be activated, and then it has to start controlling its nature. It has to come to the front. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhuh, na karma phalasam yogam svabhavastu pravartate. Here is a philosophical term, svabhava. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhuh. The Lord does not create, the Lord of the world, does not create neither actions nor the actorhood, or how to put it, actorship. Tremendous. The Lord neither creates the works of the world nor the state of the doer. Yeah, that is the actorship. Nor the joining of the works to the fruit. Na karma phalasam yogam. Nature works out these things. Svabhavastu pravartate. Now, svabhava is used here, Sri Aurobindo translates it as nature. The inner nature of the being, svabhava is another term, and swadharma, there's the same term. And svabhava in other statement of the Gita is related to Atman, Adhyatman. Yes? So svabhava is produced from the adhyatma, from realizing one's own self or one's own being, from the beingness, from being embodied here. The nature generates the need of activity, which is leading, which is creating the connection to the fruit, to the result, and the activities, karmani, and the actorship or the actorhood, the state of the doer. It's all created by nature. And that state of kartritvam, the state of the doer, generates what we know as ego sense. It produces that particular shade. Yeah? Somebody was saying something.
When you refer to nature, are you speaking about Prakriti, or is this another?
Yes, Prakriti. Yeah. Okay. When we say nature, we always mean Prakriti as in opposition to Purusha. Purusha is the conscious soul. Prakriti is his power, which manifests him in this world. And Prakriti is manifesting him also in the transcendental world, which is called Para-Prakriti, the higher Prakriti, which is Satchitananda. It is that Prakriti, the Divine Mother, so to say. And the lower Prakriti, Apara-Prakriti, which is mind, vital, and body. So both are Prakriti, and he is the Purusha, the consciousness, who perceives himself, either the unborn self or born, or inborn self or born self. So there are three statuses of Akshara Purusha, unborn self, Kshara Purusha, born self, and Purushottama, beyond both. And still it is Purusha. It is that consciousness which perceives himself in the mode of the higher Prakriti and lower Prakriti. And Svabhava is that which projects the inner being into the manifestation in a particular way in need of fulfillment. It's a very sophisticated definition in a way. Once we understand it, we will understand why we are here to fulfill certain things, why we are looking for certain things and not for other things. Why we are driven by particular svabhava, our own inner nature. We are looking for certain fulfillment. We want to become composed, and to become totally composed and united, we need elements from nature, from this manifestation. We need that experience, that fulfillment, and that svabhava leads us. That's why we come to this manifestation. We are born here in this body to fulfill certain needs of our growth of consciousness, to become yuktas, to become fulfilled. And our tasks are quite different. Each one is very unique and looking for particular experience. It's an amazing arrangement in the world, if you think of it, how the divine arranged everything. I do not know whether it makes sense to all of you, but most probably for those who studied Sri Aurobindo and this literature, it makes sense. Svabhava and Svadharma. By the way, Radha is preparing the course on these Svabhava and Svadharma, and we would maybe one day kind of share with you these interesting ways of looking at ourselves. Swadharma is that how this svabhava, the inner need of development, is projected into our activities, into our life. Do we find our swadharma, our own engagement with nature, which fulfills our inner growth? But still it belongs to Prakriti. It is this Prakriti which manifests the divine. It is his force. She does it. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't generate neither state of a doer, nor actions, nor attachment to the fruit of action. All is done by Prakriti, by the Divine Mother, actually. It is she who is doing everything. All right, there is few more shlokas. Shall we take, or we can open to some discussion? It would be great if you like. It's a big topic on Svabhava and Svadharma and fulfillment in this manifestation. These are profound topics. No?
Vladimir, I remember people saying in Oroville that the fact that you could move from occupational interest to another rather easily there was a way of finding that Swadharma. There seems to be more opportunity because you're not bound to a career in a particular occupation. You don't depend. You're not. You don't have to generate a certain income or anything like that. You have a freedom to try to find your true calling within that society.
Yeah. Some of us have a need to be free we have different motivations to act, and not necessarily motivation by money or some fulfillment or some, career and success in life, what people usually are motivated with. Some of us have totally different motivations and can live by that. They're self-motivated. They are not motivated by others or by other propositions from the world. And of course, they are They need a whole will. They need a new arrangement, a new social arrangement, which would allow them to do that. You know, Mother wanted from us much more. Unfortunately, we failed in every way to really make that arrangement. We tried to imitate it, but we really didn't do it in a deeper sense, in the truer sense. We imitated this in form, but in reality, it really does not totally match the requirement, the real freedom. Though it is there. I lived there 27 years, and I must tell you that that feeling of being free every morning when you wake up, you don't need to do anything. Find what you want to do. It's something, it's a gift. And you sit down on the motorbike and you go through that sunlight and that fresh air in the morning to Matrimandir, just to a little bit to sit in the garden before you will go to Savitri Bhavan and engage in some activities. Doesn't matter which activities, any activities are good. Any activities are welcome because you are free and you can choose. But the moment you become less free, less and less and less free, and you need more and more money to survive in Auroville, and there are more rules and regulations and visa and this and that and God knows what, then it narrows down your capacity. Still it is there in the air, like a vision, but in reality it becomes less vivid. And that's what we experienced. So, but it doesn't mean that it should not be realized. It is already.
Vladimir?
Yes.
The Gita talks about us being beyond the gunas. Can you tie the present state of mankind, since we have the swabhava, which determines how dependent we are on the gunas and what gunas predominant of the three, which gunas are predominant in our mental and vital behavior. So that's this state of majority of mankind. We're still tied to the gunas. We still think of being sattvic, as a goal, the old Indian tradition that once you're done with your family responsibilities, you retire to some solitary place and become more sattvic and everything. So the swabhav in scientific terms is what your genes determine. Your temperament, your behavior is dependent on the genes you inherited from your parents. You see some of that similarities, from father to son, So where does this transition? It's a stepwise process. So I just want to know what you see there. How would you draw the path? Going from the current gunas based, swabhav, genetic or what have you may call it, to the higher swadharma that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a very complex
would that
question you
require-
are putting forward. Yeah, very interesting. Yes, please go ahead.
That requires, for that change to happen, it requires some connection with the psychic being, I imagine. It's not a mental effort,
No, it's not mental. Mental is another kind
So
of guna. Yeah.
So it boils down to things the mother talks about: aspiration, surrender, offering, these concepts to, get beyond swabhav, beyond the gunas, The way I see it, so I wanted your thoughts on it,
Right. And this, three gunas is the chapter in Jnana Yoga, to which we will arrive, and we will examine in detail how these gunas determine everything. They determine not only our actions, but our motivations, our ways of offering, our ways of sacrificing, our ways of aspiring. So there will be many ways of gunas, which our ways of how we do tapasyas, our concentrated effort of consciousness to achieve or to realize ourselves will be also in accordance with gunas for some reason. Because we inherited this nature, as you rightly said, from our parents, from our, and we inherited a particular way of being. It's very useful now to mention Ayurvedic approach of, Vata, Kapha, and Pitta. And if you look at these, you see that we have a particular nature which behaves in a particular way, which prefers a particular sense of being, food, dinacharya, the way of living is very different. The timing is different. The ways how we behave, think, feel ourselves and others, how we perceive the world, is very different in a way from one another. So I would like to invite some other opinions, like Radhe is here from Ayurvedic perspective, or Martha, or Robert, whoever.
I'll just comment. For me, I see Swabhava as that line of development that the soul has come into in this lifetime, its way of evolving, and that evolution or that progress as it comes forward, it can be expressed through Pitta, Kapha, Raja, Tamas, any number of ways. So these outer terms are simply vehicles or instruments for expressing a soul's line of development, the swabhava of the soul in this lifetime. So I think what's important is the contact, as you were saying, Lakshman, with the soul or the psychic being, and that opening to its purpose for being here, and allowing that to determine the form of expression. If you start with the form of expression and don't have that connection with the psychic, then there's nothing there. We're kind of in a stalemate. But I see that Swabhava much deeper. And the gunas and the doshas and everything else is just its form of expression.
Yeah. But it's quite interesting that there are 3 gunas and 3 doshas, and there is this inertia, energy, and sattva. There is the same division in the occultism. Some of you may have studied Kabbalah. In Kabbalistic approach, there is also these 3, 3 letters of the mother. They call them letters of the mother: Aleph, Mem, and Shin. So 1st, 13th, and 21st. These are the sacred numbers in the Western tradition. 13 is the letter of death. Mem, interesting, it's Ma letter. Mem. And Shin is 21, is another very important number. And 1 is totally important number. So 1, 13, and 21 are 3 letters of the mother, which express these 3. The Aleph is the first one, letter A, B, C, D. Aleph is the first letter, which represents the lofty being, the sattva, as it were. Then Mem is that heavy water, or kapha, or tamas guna, and Shin is the fire. So how they explain it, there is a triangle of Fabre d'Olivier, one occultist, who explains it as water put on the fire evaporates. So water plus fire gives some third quality. Or they speak about free will, which is fire, and karma, or rock, destiny, which is tamas, which is given to us. So free will and karma, or destiny, are balanced by providence, the divine providence. So when the divine providence is on the side of the free will, it overtakes the karma. It can change the destiny. But when the divine providence is on the side of rock or destiny, then it overtakes the free will. Free will cannot dominate them. Just see that this providence, there must be something from the sattvic guna which comes from beyond, some kind of sanction of the supreme, either to the free will or to the establishment which is made by nature, which is holding to its own establishment. Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes this in The Hour of God, where he says there are times when this small effort brings big results, and there are times where great effort brings hardly any result. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not speaking literally, not quoting. So there are times when there are great efforts made and they have no result. That means providence is on the side of the destiny, on the establishment, and not on the side of free will. But there are times, and that is the hour of God, when the providence is on the side of free will. It's today. So we can change our destinies. It's the hour of God. That's what he calls. It's our time to change anything. Whatever we want to change, it is changeable now. The providence supports our free will. So here again, there are three gunas. You see, it's a profound philosophical topic. On this topic, everything is on these three gunas. The whole jnana yoga is built of the Gita. So how to go beyond them? Sri Aurobindo says, become sattvic more and more. Sattvic means balancing the free will and destiny and establishment, finding that harmony between the two, between you and your environment, between your free will and your body, finding that balance which will make you sattvic in a way. And once you are sattvic in nature, you can see through, as it were, through the veil, the presence of the spirit. It will be tangible. Well, the same proposition we find in Buddhism, yes, and other religions, to become the middle path, to become balanced, not to be excessive in anything. And in that balance, to find a position in which you can see that beyond the nature there is a presence of Purusha, or the spirit. That is about jnana yoga. But we can't overcome nature by destroying it or by being very rajasic or being very tamasic. It won't work. We will be more and more engraved in nature. So some people who try to be very rajasically doing yoga, they are not going anywhere. Or people who are becoming very tamasic and inactive, fall asleep, also go nowhere. So we need that sattvic quality through which we could see the presence of the spirit. This is how we can manage nature. Some other ideas maybe?
There's also the element of the witness consciousness, but that's a whole other subject, I guess.
It is this subject, yes. How to get to that witness consciousness without being sattvic is hardly even imaginable for this nature. Nature has to become transparent enough to perceive it. You remember when Sri Aurobindo met with Vishnu Bhaskar Lele, what he told him? Oh, you are a poet. It would be not difficult for you to do this meditation. You are a poet. It's quite an interesting remark. Yeah? So you prepared yourself. You prepared your consciousness in nature to be transparent enough to do this meditation, to find the witness. Otherwise, how? How would we find the witness? Unless, of course, there is a divine grace interferes and pushes us out in some way. But from the point of view of nature, from the involved consciousness, it would be quite difficult to arrive at the even sense of the presence of Purusha. You remember how Pavitra discovered the witness. It's quite interesting. He, step by step, he led him into meditation, into observing his thoughts, not being involved in his thoughts, allowing them to flow, not to engage when the thought is coming to him, not to be engaged in its movement. Just observe that it came and left. Yeah? So, and slowly with that state of mind, he discovered something in him, the observer in the mind. First, he said, there's someone who tells that, wait a minute, stop thinking. Somebody in us tells us, stop thinking, watch, be silent, quiet. So what are you doing? You're not supposed to do this. So, and he asks Sri Aurobindo, who is this one who tells me what I am supposed to do in the meditation? And Sri Aurobindo says, it is Manomaya Purusha. Purusha in the mind. So what he had to discover Purusha which is beyond mind, but already the representation of Purusha in the mind is already here as a witness, mental witness of the mental activity. So he explains that the mind splits on the active part and the perceptive part. The perceptive, passive part observes the activity of the active part of the mind. It's within the mind. It's not yet even Purusha, but it is already happening there. The split within the mind is taking place, preparing the finding of the witness. And then there must be some push or something, or grace, I don't know, as it was in Sri Aurobindo's case, that he says he could come up above, he's high in the height, and from the height he could see his mental being into which the thoughts are entering. He could see it from far away, as it were, from the height, not from involved judgment of what thoughts are, as Pavitra's case was. And from there he could withdraw from activities totally. So to say, brush away thoughts and keep the empty space of the mind for a while, because that empty space was necessary to get this new experience of the higher consciousness. And then he says the silence descended. The silence descended into the mental being, into his nature, and it was settled there. There was no more thinking. So silent Brahman. That is some kind of grace. Not many of us have this opportunity to have that silent Brahman descend down into our being. But we have a glimpse of it. We know about it. We know that it is true. So all our evolution and this svabhava and involvement is about becoming more and more yukta, more and more composed, more and more complex, and more capable of uniting the opposites, of the activity and passivity, or the free will and destiny. And that capacity of nature that creates the sattvic nature, which allows us to do yoga and to find our unborn self, as it were. I believe so, at least. from the Gita, learning from the Gita this way, and from Sri Aurobindo why we have to become sattvic in nature.
Vladimir, isn't it also possible to become realized through bhakti, which is a sort of rajasic endeavor to realize the divine in that way?
Probably there are all possible ways to realize the divine. I'm sure the divine has, it is free to grant anything and remove all the obstacles at once. There is even Mother speaks that you can come through the physical Atman, physical self to the divine. Even there is a way to do it. Not only through the emotional heart, kind of longing for the divine, but the emotional is the most powerful agent of calling, aspiring, wanting, loving. Love is the greatest power in us, which can invoke the presence.
I also see bhakti, if it's true bhakti, then it's coming from love, right? And a desire for union, which is sattvic. So it's simply expressing itself, this divine love, through some activity. So, and in this case, it's singing. So any activity, any action can still be sattvic in nature, to me, based on its underlying driver or intent or attitude or aspiration, right? So we have to believe that you can still be in action and be sattvic while in movement, or I have to believe that if it's coming from the heart or from an inner knowing or a deeper yearning. So I don't see any contradiction between bhakti and being sattvic at all.
Well, thank you. That's a good explanation. Thank you.
I think that's very true.
But doesn't bhakti also come from surrender?
Yeah. You want to surrender. You want to give yourself. That is the love, moment of love. Yeah, you want to totally give yourself to the divine without any reservation. It is the greatest moment of love. And it is a honey wave. Yeah, it is not something like a painful giving oneself. It's a loving giving oneself. It is full of delight, which is in itself very joyful and blissful. You are not at loss by giving yourself. Opposite, you are gaining everything.
Yeah, it's total surrender in every which way.
Yes.
Isn't Vladimir, if you have true aspiration and as total as surrender, then any path that you choose, whether it's through bhakti or through any other mode, physical, vital, or mental, all of those paths will based again on your swabhava. You'd be led to the shortest path based on your swabhava, in a sense.
Absolutely. Oh, this is a very good explanation what you gave. Yes, there are some of us who are more inclined to do one particular modality, to be bhaktas. Others are jnanis. And these jnanis and bhaktas are always quarreling, as you know. The people of knowledge and people of love always have some disputes, some issues to solve. People of knowledge do not trust people of love. They think that they are too vital, loving for no reason, and they imagine things. They do not know what they love, and so on. And people of the heart, they feel that these jnanis, they are too much in the mind. They are too mental, thinking all the time something and believing that it is that real thing. They don't have that feeling in their heart. And there are other people who actually do work in the body. And this is quite interesting. And they have some other belief, willpower within the body to realize the divine, the embodiment of the divine in this nature. And they totally believe in it. And I think Lakshman is one of those lucky ones
Yes.
who has this third kind of variety of will within the power to surrender the whole being, the being from the physical ground to the mother, and trust her in a full realization. This is something unique. And all of them, can you imagine if we have all of them together? All the three, without any contradiction within one being, what it could be.
That's what is essential for the next step in evolution. The supramental species is having all parts of our being, mental, vital, and physical, being controlled by the spirit.
Yeah. And that's what I believe is yukta. Yukta is totally composed where there is no more difference between these three movements. They are all working together. The true in path, as Sri Aurobindo speaks in the Gita, the true in path.
As Sri Ramakrishna said, there are as many paths as there are people. Means that the freedom of choice and the number of paths is not restricted to 1, 2, or 3. It could be a million paths, depending on each one's swabhav and aspiration or surrender.
Sure. We are speaking only about these three kind of constituent parts of our nature, of mind, heart, and will. And otherwise, there are as many paths as people. And Sri Aurobindo says the same. Yes, absolutely. It's due to svabhava, basically, to that unique nature. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So the divine has an open door policy. It doesn't have any entrance requirements, in a sense.
Yeah, doesn't have an issue with what way you come to the divine. Yeah. Through religious means, through scientific means, through whatever, love, and through ignorance. We're all moving through ignorance, but in our specific way, looking for special and unique fulfillment. We have to stop. We are 10 minutes over already.
Vladimir, can I just make one statement?
Yes, please.
So earlier you talked about sattvic, means you and your versus your environment and balancing out. So can you apply this balancing out in a 3 different ways that we just talked about? Love, physical, mental. So do we each path has to be balanced out, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there are all possible varieties. I do not yet see it totally, but how to even approach it. If somebody sees, please interfere and bring your to this question. Yeah, do you have some ideas how these 3 paths can be balanced in their own unique way? That unique combination of them 3.
Well, I think, Tansa, if I understand you right, what you're saying is that each path individually has a sattvic way, a way of balance and harmony and truth and love, and together, right? When we are fully evolved and we have both body, mind, and heart. Together on the same path and evolving through these 3 different, the triple path, right? That in itself is also a sattvic balancing of the body, mind, and heart, if I'm understanding what you're saying. Individually, it's a sattvic path, any one of them, and collectively, it's sattvic by balancing all 3 within the individual. Am I understanding you right, Hansa?
No, that's very nice what you just described, but my thinking was a little different. My question was a little different, that let's say somebody's practicing through heart or love, as Vladimir said, does that person also has the practice of being sattvic? That means balancing out everything within your own practice, just with love.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
By the way, psychic love is very non-rajasic. It is very peaceful, and the flame of aspiration is not demanding. It doesn't need a result. It is already fulfilled. The very flame is fulfilling already, because that delight which is rising from the heart is already the result of that, what it wants to have. It wants to have itself, so to say. It wants to continue to love. It wants to love endlessly without any stop. And more it loves, more it wants to love. So there is no issue. It doesn't want to realize something and to stop doing it because it's difficult. It loves doing what it is doing. Yes. So in a way, it is very balanced. Every sattva is needed for the nature to come to those inner beings within the heart and unborn self, witness Purusha above. So when the nature is capable of being harmonized and become sattvic, it can become silent and well balanced and allow these energies to shine through. And that's what it is to be sattvic. Sattvic doesn't
Thank
work
you.
anymore in those, in the aspiration or in the witness. There is no more need for sattva, as it were. Once it is.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you did answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I also add, like, I think I don't remember the exact place, but in Sri Aurobindo's, either in Synthesis of Yoga or Life Divine, like, there is a page or a chapter which says about, like, if one path is explored fully, it automatically leads to the other. Like, if the path of love or bhakti is explored fully, it automatically leads to knowledge. And if knowledge is explored fully, it automatically leads to other. Like, even in the path of bhakti and love, like, one first starts with love, then a time comes when one is so complete in love, one wants to know one's lover. So that would automatically then lead to knowledge, like know the lover's aspects, the lover's different ways of dealing with things. So that would automatically propel that person towards knowledge, how it's acted out in nature. So this is how I think one transcends to another, like totally. And at the end, there is a complete balance and harmony of all three aspects.
Very nice. Thank you for
That's
Yes.
so true, Dolan.
Yeah.
That's it's wonderfully discussed in the Synthesis of Yoga.
Yeah.
The three paths merge and become one, because the more we come close to the divine through knowledge, the more our devotion increases. And if we start from the path of works with offering, that leads to increased intimacy with the divine and love for the divine and knowledge of the divine. So they all work together quite wonderfully.
Yeah, I think what Martha said, the key word is offering. Yeah, take the aspect of knowledge or the emotional, the bhakti or the physical. If all of these are done as an offering, then there is a harmony is created between all three parts, and balance is created. I see it.
Yeah.
Vladimir, I have a question also. Quick question. I know you're over, maybe. So somebody asked me in another group, has anyone transformed their mind, mental and vital? I know physical transformation has not been done, but the triple transformation, they said anyone has done that besides the mother and Sri Aurobindo, and I couldn't name names. I'm sure somebody must have done that, maybe Champaklal or, Nalinda. So the mental and vital transformation should have been done by other devotees, I hope, because he was kind of discouraged. Oh, this is so difficult. No one has done it except the mother and Sri Aurobindo, even on the mental and the vital planes, the triple transformation, right? The mental transformation, the vital transformation, and the physical, of course, we're still working on. But those top two Has anyone else done it? Do you have any names, examples that you can share?
I can't share much of this. Of course, we have examples from sadhaks of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and some examples are really stunning, like Pavitra, for example, when he left his body, Mother says
Yes.
she never saw anything of the kind, this mastery of collecting all consciousness from the mind, vital and even physical, till the last drop, and entering into the Mother totally and being there, totally aware. This is something very rare. I think because of her presence for many years, living in her presence, learning from her, identifying with her, obeying her. Pavitra was totally obeying the Mother. That's what I loved about him. He was never, he loved everything, whatever she said, he knew that this is the divine law. He just followed it, and he became a marvelous being. And nobody knew about him much. They looked at him like a normal man, there, standing in the queue, waiting for some, for some flower from the Mother, some handkerchief. The same as everyone else, with children, long Pavitra and children, small children, with them together in the queue. It's really hard.
Amazing, yeah. His soul, when he left his body, his soul merged with the Mother. That is, I don't understand that, but anyway, that's incredible. And Mother said this must have happened to his past tapasya or past lives. She was saying some comment like that. Yeah, he just merged with the Mother's consciousness after his death.
Yeah.
I used to go to Pavitrada for all school related issues, like anything I want. Always he was so calm and so peaceful. That was his demeanor, that as a child I always sort of noticed.
Wow, so lucky to be with him.
Right, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful journey if we read about these beings, and there is this diary of Pavitra, this kind of conversations with Pavitra, technique of meditation, where Sri Aurobindo leads him into meditation. I would recommend everybody to read this if you didn't. It's profound.
I have read it, yes, yeah.
Yeah, this was my guide for meditation from the beginning of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I found it absolutely effective and marvelous. Whatever Sri Aurobindo tells us there to do is really working. You can just follow that instruction, and you will arrive at this kind of state of being, what Pavitra was doing. You could feel everything, the power. It's really very, very useful guidance. And then, of course, there is a literature of Sri Aurobindo which is charged with consciousness. Whatever book you take, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be only Savitri. Just open any essays, whatever, and just read few sentences and you feel, boom, the presence. Because the consciousness with which he was writing, expressing himself, is connecting to that state, which we call Sri Aurobindo, yes, is my protection or my refuge. It's a state of consciousness.
Yeah. That's a good point, Vladimir. So if you listen to the words, is that the same effect as reading it, or reading is? So. I know. Oh, it's okay. Because I know Mother said reading, they charge the words to help the sadhaks in an occult way. But I was wondering if listening also would be the same effect.
Sure, listening is reading. It's just another way of hearing the rhythm of that consciousness expressing itself. For me, hearing is more powerful than even seeing. I perceive better through hearing. Some people are more visual, they like to read. But if you do both, it's even better. We want to develop these audiobooks, to help people to combine both, seeing and hearing together. it is more effective in a way, I noticed.
So that will be fantastic. I think that will be fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So I close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santo Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.